Some sounds just stick with you, you know? Not like catchy songs, but noises that crawl under your skin and stay there. For me, it's the sound of rusty swing sets, not the happy squeaking you hear in parks during the day, but the low, grinding groan they make late at night when the wind catches them just right. It reminds me of something that happened when I was maybe 9 or 10, something that turned my favorite place in the world into somewhere I could never look at the same way again. My grandparents lived about 2 hours away, in this small, sleepy town where everyone knew everyone. Their house was old but cozy, right at the end of a quiet street. But the best part, for me anyway, was the park. It wasn't anything fancy, just a patch of grass with a couple of benches, a slide, and this ancient-looking swing set. It was maybe a 5-minute walk from their house, down this little gravel path that cut behind some backyards. I spent hours there every time we visited. This particular visit was in late summer. The days were still hot, but the evenings were starting to get that cool edge, the kind that makes you think fall is just around the corner. My parents had gone out to dinner with my grandparents, leaving me with my older cousin, Mark. Mark was maybe 15 at the time, mostly interested in video games and ignoring me, which was fine. I was allowed to go to the park by myself as long as it wasn't totally dark yet and the sun was just starting to dip below the trees. So, I grabbed my worn-out soccer ball and headed down the gravel path. The park was empty, which wasn't unusual for a weekday evening in that town. The light was getting golden and long, casting crazy shadows from the slide and swings. I kicked my ball around for a bit, practiced some clumsy dribbling, just enjoying the quiet and the feeling of having the whole place to myself. After a while, I got tired of the ball and decided to hit the swings. That swing set was ancient, seriously. Thick metal poles painted a faded red, chains that were more rust than silver, and wooden seats worn smooth by decades of kids. It made noise even when you just sat on it. I started pumping my legs, trying to go as high as I could, leaning back and looking up at the sky turning purple and orange. That's when I first heard it. Not the usual creaking of the swings, but something else. A low, rhythmic thudding sound. Thump, thump, thump. It was coming from the small patch of woods that bordered the far side of the park. Not deep woods, just a thick tangle of trees and bushes that separated the park from an old, unused service road no one ever drove on. I stopped swinging, letting my feet drag on the dusty ground. The thudding continued. Thump, thump, thump. It wasn't fast, but it was steady, consistent. I wasn't scared, more curious than anything. I figured maybe it was an animal, like a woodpecker, even though it didn't quite sound right for that. Or maybe someone chopping wood, though it seemed like a weird time and place for it. I hopped off the swing and walked slowly towards the edge of the trees, squinting into the deepening shadows. The thudding got a little clearer, but I still couldn't see anything. It sounded like something heavy hitting soft earth. Thump, thump, thump. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding small in the open air. The thudding stopped, instantly. The sudden silence felt louder than the noise had been. I stood there for a moment, listening. Nothing. Just the buzz of late summer insects and the distant bark of a dog. I told myself it was probably nothing. Maybe some teenagers messing around or someone doing yard work I couldn't see. I turned back towards the swings, ready to head home since it was getting properly dark now. As I turned, I saw him. He was standing near the slide, maybe 30 feet away, half hidden in the shadow it cast. He hadn't been there a second ago. I'm sure of it. He was tall and thin, wearing dark, baggy clothes. I couldn't make out his face clearly in the dim light, but what I could see was the shovel he was holding. It wasn't a garden shovel, it was one of those heavy-duty ones with a pointed tip, the kind you use for digging serious holes. And it was caked with fresh, dark dirt. My heart jumped into my throat. He was just standing there, perfectly still, holding the shovel, watching me. He didn't move, didn't speak. The way he held the shovel wasn't threatening, exactly, more like he was just resting it, point down on the ground. But him being there, appearing so silently right after that thudding sound stopped, it sent a chill right through me. I didn't know what to do. Run. Scream. Pretend I hadn't seen him. My feet felt glued to the spot. We just stared at each other across the darkening park for what felt like forever, but was probably only 10 seconds. The only sound was the faint groan of one of the empty swings moving slightly in the breeze. Then he slowly lifted his free hand and pointed. Not at me, but towards the gravel path that led back to my grandparents' street. It wasn't an angry point or a scary point. It was just a point, an instruction. Go. I didn't need telling twice. I didn't even grab my soccer ball. I just turned and ran. I didn't sprint flat out, more like a panicked, stumbling jog, constantly glancing back over my shoulder. He didn't follow. He just stood there by the slide, a tall, dark figure holding a shovel, watching me until I scrambled onto the gravel path and the bushes hid him from view. I didn't stop running until I burst through my grandparents' back door, gasping for breath. Mark was still glued to his video game and barely looked up. My parents and grandparents weren't back yet. I didn't say anything to Mark. What would I say? That I saw a man with a shovel in the park? He'd probably just laugh or tell me I was imagining things. I went upstairs and locked myself in the guest room bathroom, just sitting on the edge of the tub, trying to calm my racing heart. The image of him standing there, the silence after the thudding, the way he pointed, it replayed over and over in my head. What had he been doing? What was he digging? Why did he stop when I called out? Why just point? My parents and grandparents came home about an hour later, full of apologies for being late. I didn't tell them either. It felt unreal, like something out of a bad dream. And honestly, I was afraid they wouldn't let me go to the park alone anymore if I told them. That park was my sanctuary, or at least it had been. The next morning, driven by a morbid curiosity I couldn't quite control, I walked back down the gravel path. It was a bright, sunny day. Birds were chirping. Everything looked normal. My soccer ball was still lying near the swings where I'd left it. I forced myself to walk over to the edge of the woods where I'd heard the thudding. I scanned the ground just inside the tree line, and I found it. Not a huge hole, but a definite area of disturbed earth. It was roughly rectangular, maybe 3 feet long by 2 feet wide. The soil was darker and looser than the surrounding ground, and there were clear shovel marks in it. It looked exactly like someone had dug a shallow hole and then hastily filled it back in. Standing there, staring at that patch of dirt, the fear from the night before came rushing back, colder this time. What was buried there? Or what wasn't buried there anymore? Had he been digging something up or burying something? Had my calling out interrupted him? I never found out. I didn't touch the disturbed earth. I just backed away slowly, grabbed my ball and walked back to my grandparents' house, feeling sick to my stomach. I never went back to that park alone again, not even during the day. Every time we visited after that, I'd find excuses to stay inside or play in the yard. Years later, as a teenager, I tried searching online for any local news reports from around that time. Missing pets, unsolved disappearances, anything weird connected to that park or the woods behind it. I found nothing. It was like it never happened. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And I know what I found the next day. Sometimes, late at night, if the wind is blowing just right, I swear I can still hear that low, rhythmic thudding. Thump, thump, thump. And I see that tall, silent figure standing in the shadows, holding a dirt-caked shovel, just pointing the way home. Or maybe pointing me away from something I was never meant to see. The not knowing is the worst part. It just hangs there, a question mark buried in the dirt at the edge of a forgotten park.